Well, howdy, folks. How you doing this very fine sort of a day? Well, night, as it's turning out to be, and it's a tad darker in here than I thought. So let me try and get a light up where maybe I can reflect a bit off my forehead. How's your Friday gone? Pretty cool? I've had a busy day today, planning on it being fairly busy for the next few weeks, of course. Why? Well, there's so much going on. Michelle Lee, we're going to talk to her a little later in the program. She's going to ring in from somewhere a bit under 300 nautical miles off the coast of far north Queensland. She's hoping, well, I won't tell you when she's hoping to arrive. We'll let her talk her way through it. But it's going to be a hell of a trip. And it turns out the rowboat, you would think, well, you know, how hard is it to steer a rowboat? Well, turns out it can be quite difficult. This rowboat is made for deep water. It's not made for shallow water at all. It's meant for deep ocean rowing. So the shallower the water, the more difficult it gets, believe it or not. So, and if you are going out to greet her in any way, shape or form, please keep your boat well away from hers. She has very little control of it other than going in, you know, a straight line. And if you get too close, if she touches you, if you touch her, it's all over. No record, which makes it hard. Let me just close the dog door here for a minute. That'll make it easier. So, if that's your plan, if you're going to head out off Cairns and meet her, then make sure you stay well back, well away. And, of course, she needs to finish. So I think we should all be a bit understanding that while we'll have an engine to get us out there and back, she's got to get herself to land. And, we might be traveling, or there might be groups of people traveling with her who've gone out to, do with the best of intentions to greet her and welcome her and hail her home. But they might meet her 30 or so Ks out, or 20 or 10 or 15, and it will distract her from what she has to do. She still has to make land. So it's probably better that we leave those sorts of celebrations until she's much closer to the land, and things are being arranged. So there is a great group of people around Michelle who are arranging her Cairns arrival and what goes on after that. So it's tremendous. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, but I'm just so glad that she's going to be able to call in tonight and give us a bit of an update. It'll probably be the last time we talk to her before she arrives. It's going to be very, very hectic getting in. She was explaining to me earlier just about what it is to get in the reef, get inside the reef. So we're going to learn a lot about that from her tonight. In the meantime, while we're waiting for her to come, I thought I might play you a few interesting things. Now, I don't know if it's made, I'm sure it has made big news all around Australia, but in Queensland, it's super huge news. Recently, throughout this month at some stage, 3 teenagers invited a girl over to a house somewhere on the Sunshine Coast, on the northern edge of the Sunshine Coast, which is usually a pretty nice sort of an area, let me just say. They invited this 4th girl over where they tortured her. They stole her shoes, took her phone, and then proceeded to do all sorts of things, resulting in a week's stay in hospital for this kid, 13 years old. The girls who did this to her are also 13 years old, 3 of them, I think 13, maybe 14. So these things that are alleged to have happened have been handed over to police, so we've got to be very careful about what we say about these things. However, there is concern for the perpetrators in all of this. And I think quite rightly, there needs to be some concern for them. Their names have been made public. Their addresses have been made public. Their parents, in some cases, I believe, their jobs and whatnot have been made public. In one case, one of the parents is reporting a continual stream of cars cruising past the house. This is all very threatening, very intimidating for, regardless of what these kids did. And I know that it's bloody horrible what they did. But we have to give the law the chance to do what it claims it's going to do. I know there is absolutely no feeling that there will be justice because our courts, particularly when it comes to kids, seem to have no idea. If these alleged crimes are borne out to be true, then the courts will have an opportunity. But what do you do with 13-year-old kids? Do you send them deep into the system? Obviously, there needs to be a punishment if they're found guilty, but what do you do with them? Do you send them deeper into a system? These kids, their names now are very close to being ruined for the rest of their lives. And I'm not sure what they thought they were doing when they allegedly got on social media and started telling people what they'd done to this girl, and I think showing video of it. They've attracted an awful lot of attention, not just here in Australia.
Greetings, citizens of Australia. We are anonymous. This is an update on the current Operation Kira. So far we have found many identities, addresses, mobile numbers, and much more. In 24 hours our cyber attacks will be launched. For more information or questions, please contact us. Also share our account. Our actions mean nothing if nobody can see what we share. These girls will fall to their knees. And Kira, you have the whole world on your shoulders. Everyone is so proud of you. You are amazing. Note, we are a cyber group. We do not condone physical aggression. This is why we are doing this in the first place. If you are confused on who we are, please Google us. We are anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
So, puts me in a bit of a position. I ordinarily would support Anonymous in everything that they do. But in this instance, if this truly is an anonymous message, then I'm wondering what their operation possibly could be. To terrorize 13-year-old kids, to hurt their families, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen anything that the parents have come out and said, if indeed the parents have come out and said anything. I did hear that one of them was saying or defending their child. Not altogether unexpectedly. Most parents, I think, would try and offer their kids some form of defense. Whether it was defensible or not remains to be seen. But I would have thought at this time, in this war that we've been fighting, and Anonymous have been fighting alongside us, leading in many cases, I would have thought at this time, this distraction is unwarranted from Anonymous. I don't think that it's the right thing to do. What is the cyber attack? Who are you going to attack? 3 13-year-old girls who I believe now are in protective custody. So, all right, we do have problems with our justice system. We do have no faith that any justice will be meted out. I understand that. But we need to see that worked through, people. All right? If the justice system proves not to work, then the people have, well, a reason to stand up and fight. Now, we've seen it many times before. What we need is a catalyst moment. Is this the catalyst moment? Because, you know, all power to Anonymous and everything that they do, but I don't understand the nature of this attack they're going to make, supposedly, and who are they going to make it upon, and why? What use will it be? How will it change our justice system? The only way that Anonymous could help our justice system is to hack into it and find out the truth that they keep hiding from us. But I don't think, and nor am I encouraging them to get involved in that. But I fail to understand what that threat that I just played you is. I fail to understand how they can back that up. I might be being a bit slow. I've only had it for half an hour, 45 minutes before the show came on air. I really haven't thought tremendously deeply on it, but I did watch it once and watched it again then. It doesn't feel any more comfortable in me after I've seen it a second time. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? That's a bloody good question, Kat. Where are these girls getting this hate from? That's a question that should be answered. and should be asked, and hopefully the kids are brave enough, strong enough, able enough to tell the truth about it, find out where this reasoning comes from. I know that there are so many people who say, oh, it's all video games, violent video games and that kind of thing. Well, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have said or agreed with that at all. But then again, when I was playing violent video games, they were sort of square on square, and there was a little, square ball bouncing between them. So, yes, I have played some of the more violent games. Hello, Sunflower, and everybody else tonight. I don't think I said hello to everybody else. Michelle Bradley Smith's in the room. Good to have you there. Yeah, so I don't know. Video games, maybe. Movies, absolutely. Hollywood has been programming us, desensitizing us to violence for so many years. In fact, my daughter and I were only talking about violence and fights today. Back when I went to school, if you, and I'm talking primary school, so it's a long time ago, if you were going to have a fight with a kid, it didn't happen in the school grounds. It happened across the road, interestingly enough, behind the Masonic Lodge in the little town I grew up in. Didn't know it was a Masonic Lodge at the time. But the fights always happened out the back of there. And if you knocked your opponent down, you let them get up. And then the fight would continue, or the opponent would walk away. If the fight went to the ground, because you were wrestlers, not boxers, then one of you eventually gave up, you got up, and you walked away. Today, the goal is to get you on the ground, whichever way. Now, if that's coming from behind and coat hanging you from behind, or king hitting you, all the better. And then it's not about you getting up. It's about how much of the shit they can kick out of you before you get up and try and protect yourself. Now, where did the kids learn that? Ever played Grand Theft Auto? Just saying. One reasonably violent game where you are encouraged, if you want to be the bad guy in the game, to jump out and beat the shit out of pedestrians and prostitutes, and because prostitutes have more money than normal pedestrians. Yeah. Could that be? It's just a bit of fun. That's just one game. I'm not meaning to single it out. It was one of the first, I suppose, ultra-violent games that I remember anyway. But there are many more these days. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Call of Duty fan. I haven't got anything to play it on at the moment, and I'm not really don't have enough time to play it. But back in the day, absolutely. Call of Duty, America's Army, if you're into that. I was also a big online sim car racer. I know a bit about the gaming side of things, but thankfully the influences of mine were more about flight sims and driving race car sims and that kind of thing than beating the shit out of people on the side of the street and thinking it was funny or raising money out of it. Maybe that is a contributing factor. Maybe that. But Hollywood is probably the biggest factor in all of this. Hollywood and the music industry. How many of our rappers and R&B artists glorify violence in their video clips? They look like they're rewarding it with the amount of gold, I imagine plated, that is hanging off a lot of them. Might be some serious real gold hanging off the rest of them. But I'd be a little bit. Yeah, I can make an argument that was involved in changing our kids' attitudes and learning where they learn how to fight. And you see in movies made for the last 20 years, as soon as the person hits the ground, they're in with the boots. In with the boots. Now, previous to that, they were making historical dramas, and I'm thinking now of one that was about the Irish migrating into New York. I forget now what that was called. Bloody excellent movie. I think Daniel Day-Lewis was in it. Brilliant movie. Now, there might have been a bit of kicking going on in there, but once again, made at a time where Hollywood was beefing up the violence, stylizing the violence. So if that's where our kids have learned it, how do we get them to unlearn it? Like those three girls, should they be found guilty of the crimes they have apparently been allegedly charged with? Do we lock them up? Do we lock them up with older, much more aggressive, much more violent, younger criminals, because there are those locked up already? To what end? What education will they receive? What do you do with these girls? They've ruined their lives. Any Google search from now until eternity will bring up this story about them forever. They have, now that Anonymous have got involved, I think, I don't know that they needed Anonymous to get involved. I think the details had already been leaked, but the parents and the siblings of those children who are have been charged are now also made to suffer. There is every likelihood that if justice, for instance, isn't seen to be served by the wild community, then, or the wider community rather than the wild community, although they'll be pretty wild, then can those people, that family, still live in that house? If they put their house on the market in this day and age, is a mob likely to assemble at the auction that day and shout down anybody who is trying to buy it to make sure that either it doesn't sell or it sells for the lowest price possible? Oh, you're buying the home of, one of these people. Because that's what these groups do, these vigilante type groups do. We cannot have vigilantism on 13-year-old kids, people. We cannot. Okay, I understand what they did is heinous, awful, terrible, horrendous, unforgivable, one might say. But in the Lord's eyes, I guess everything is forgivable. It's how many times you have to be asked for forgiveness after repeating the act. I think the Lord gets a bit testy about. I know I do. There's no point in asking for forgiveness if you haven't learned the lesson. Now, maybe these girls have learned the lesson. What a way to learn it. Maybe they haven't, in which case they're going to go through a very similar process, maybe for the rest of their lives. So, I don't know. I'm just concerned with Anonymous weighing in. What is their great cyber plan? What are they going to do? They're going to hurt the family? Is that fair and reasonable? Something we really want? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not advocating, well, I guess I am advocating for the protection of these three kids just as much as I am for the protection of the victim and the exercise of the victim's rights to make sure that the people that allegedly committed these crimes against her, including stabbing, beating her with a bottle, stabbing in a knee, I think they did. They burnt her. They did a couple of other things. Apparently, she had panda eyes by the end of it. She wound up spending a week in hospital, practically unrecognizable to family. So there needs to be consequences. There needs to be serious consequences. But in this day and age where a parent isn't allowed to smack their child, I'm not talking about beating them, I'm saying smack their child when their child refuses on a number of occasions to either listen or learn or whatever, because there's something dangerous. Think now of a hot pot on a stove and a kid reaching for it. You can go to jail for smacking your kid these days. Now, there is a difference between smacking your kid and beating your child. I grew up with parents who smacked. I don't feel unloved because of it. I learned the boundaries, and more particularly, I learned that there was a consequence to crossing those boundaries. Now, sometimes that consequence was a smack from mum and dad. Back in the day when I went to boarding school, the consequence of not listening, not understanding, and going against the implied or the explicit instruction meant 6 on the arse with a cane. Now, I know I'm talking to the converted here. You'll all be nodding your head and saying, yeah, I remember that. Or you might remember the belt where you hold your hands out, you get the strap, right? And depending on the size of the strap and the skills of the teacher wielding it, and there was generally only maybe 1 or 2 teachers in the little schools I was at that ever got to wield the strap. And they became masters at it, depending on what the strap was. I remember a short, thick one. that I never received, thankfully. I remember a belt, a long, thin belt that was, 3 inches, 2 inches wide, 2.5 inches wide. And the teacher there didn't whip you or beat you across your hand. He stood in front of you and with the end of the belt flayed the skin off your forearms. Didn't whip your hands, just to take the skin off your forearms. It was a very effective deterrent, can I tell you? And then there was the cane. I never got the cane, but I was lucky enough to receive a fan belt instead. 6 on the arse with a fan belt. I was wearing short pajamas and a summer, dressing gown at the time. And that was all the protection I had from a very motivated evil priest who decided to give me 6 on the arse for telling some people the time after we'd been sitting in late study for talking after lights out for a couple of hours. And we had been given the instruction not to speak. So hadn't spoken for like an hour and a half, and I was the only bloke stupid enough to be wearing a watch. Leibold, what's the time? He said it's 20. I still remember the time, 26 minutes past 12. And the old priest was hiding up the back of the room behind us, ushered the 3 of us outside and gave us each 6 on the arse with a fan belt, cut in half. Roger. It had a name, didn't they all? Anyway, I learned not to talk in late study ever again. There was a consequence to the action, and they were serious about it. So what consequence can you give a 13-year-old or a bunch of 13-year-olds for what they have done? It needs to be a serious consequence. It needs to have an impact, an everlasting impact, hopefully a positive impact, if that's the right way to describe it. So I would just ask Anonymous to bear that in mind before they go launching on 13-year-old kids who are now in protective custody. What are you going to do? Don't you have something better to do at the moment? Isn't there a white hat war you're supporting? Couldn't you be exposing these fuckers in our government rather than picking on 13-year-olds? Just saying. There's a whole heap more going on. If you need to hack something, go and hack the New South Wales Electoral Commission, right? Go and see what they're doing with the votes that are happening in the New South Wales election right now. The big day is tomorrow. The election day is tomorrow. But as you've probably seen, if you've been watching TikTok or if you've been watching Telegram at all today, you will see that they've been wheeling votes out of the back of these voting polling places and taking them off to secure locations to be counted. Now, there may or may not be legal reasons for them to do that. They may or may not have the legal ability to do that. Apparently, they do. The AEC is quite surprised about it, but the New South Wales government have voted themselves a new law that says they can take the votes off wherever the hell they like, basically, and count them. And, of course, the people who are carrying those votes out of the building and putting them in their car and taking them off to whatever location are not being told any of this. They're just being told that's what you got to do, so go and do it. So if Anonymous really wanted to go on a hacking journey tomorrow, they could do something much better for the country than beating up on 3 13-year-olds and their families who at the moment, I think, are going through what must be, if not the darkest, then one of the darkest moments of their lives. Well, I think you could swing your tasks, swing your efforts a lot more and make sure that Bosie and Guru are not being cheated, that the election can be free and fair. They are very confident. I've seen some conversations with them today. I found it a little bit strange. They are out doing all sorts of promotion in America today, the last day of the New South Wales election campaign. I don't know if they've done any media here in Australia or not, or particularly in New South Wales. I don't know if they've got any last messages for people. Haven't contacted me to come on, say anything. So my suggestion is tomorrow, just do what the plan says. Go forth, tick number 1 beside the box with you on it. If you happen to get, and you live out west somewhere in New South Wales, you happen to get a ballot paper that doesn't have the box you on it, then take that immediately to your polling person and say, why is there no you box that I can tick or put number 1 in on this ballot? And make sure there is one. That's in the upper house. for tomorrow's New South Wales election. Rather than being a donkey and making your vote a donkey vote or drawing a dick on it or whatever you normally do just so you don't get the fine, really shake them up. Really make it a protest vote. Put 1 in the box beside you above the line in tomorrow's New South Wales state election. And give Bosie, Guru, and maybe a few others the opportunity to get a pair of people's eyes into that place and, well, hopefully stop maybe some of the corruption or at least expose that corruption as it is happening around the world. A very ugly set of circumstances. Michelle will be ringing in just a couple of minutes. So before we get to her, I just wanted to talk about John's log of claims. Now, we were going to go out and do something today and potentially do a live show at lunchtime. One thing led to another. That never happened. We both got a bit flat out doing other things. So unfortunately, we can't even do it tomorrow because the place where we were going to do it is totally booked out. And, well, it's no fun having to stand around and eat a steak. So we're going to go Sunday instead. Now, we're going to go to the Brecky Creek Hotel again on Sunday. So I don't know if the tools of Google Watcher are watching. Don't hide in the background and take photos of us this time. By all means, please come up, say hello. We're not going to bite your heads off. We're not going to have an argument with you either. We're not going to discuss things with you. But if you want a photo that badly, come up. All good. We will launch the log of claims over lunch, if you like, at the Brecky Creek Hotel on Sunday. If you want to come along, come along. There is a reason that we picked the Brecky Creek Hotel. Not because it's probably one of the most famous pubs in Brisbane, although that is just as good a reason as any. But it's because John Wilson has an affiliation that goes back generations with the Brecky Creek Hotel. And in fact, over the weekend, we will tell the story of Lula, his father, Lula Wilson. And if you go into the main bar at the Brecky Creek Hotel, on the wall, if you walk in the front left-hand door of the main bar of the Brecky Creek Hotel, and immediately on your left, on the wall, is a large framed remembrance, if you like, of Lula Wilson. Lula Wilson is the reason that the Brecky Creek Hotel still has wooden kegs of 4X. And Lula Wilson, John Wilson's father, his ashes are up there as well. So there is quite a Wilson history, if you like, at the Brecky Creek Hotel. And John loves a good steak. So doesn't get off the boat all that often. When he does get off it, he likes to eat well. So that's where we'll be from around about midday. In fact, if you're going to come and meet us, you've got to be there for the tapping of the keg. That happens at 12 o'clock. If I can get John there early enough, we'll get him up there to tap it this week and see what happens. But yeah, we're going to do a little live show from there, just be around our table and carrying on. We're not going to do anything big. And we will go out with the log of claims, show people what it is. And of course, it's up for your discussion. It's by no means set in concrete. This is a starting point for the freedom movement. So looking forward to getting your feedback on it. That's going to be important to us. And once you've had the opportunity to look at the log of claims, then you can just give us an email, locfeedback@vofhq.com. And if you've got suggestions for things that we may have missed, suggestions for things that we have mentioned but maybe could put in more detail or less detail or whatever you feel, make changes, amendments. That's what this is all about. Put forward your suggestions. Because at the end of it, we want everybody to be ready and able to accept this. All right, let's see how this goes. I shall hit a few buttons, and miraculously, from somewhere on the western edge of the Pacific Ocean, Michelle Lee joins us. Hello, darling.
Oh, hey, Carl. How you doing?
Is she joining us?
Hey, Carl. Can you hear me?
Now, you are joining us, but I can't hear you. Hasn't that worked out well? Let me just play with my settings here for a minute. I'm going to need to...
Testing.
Get my normal speakers. Oh, no, that's all right. It's not going to work. Maybe that'll work.
Testing.
Okay, I can hear that. Can I hear you now, darling? Please try.
Hey, Carl. How you doing?
That's going real well. I'm going to have to change you to... Yeah, I'm going to have to change you to this because for some reason you're not coming up through my system where I can hear you, which is a bit of a bummer. But that's all right. People are just going to have to get used to me holding the phone near the microphone, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
How are you? You are, well, first of all, tell us how far off the coast you are, can you?
I'm about 250 or 60 miles from Cairns, so I've got to row about 200 miles. Actually, I'm closer than that. I've got to row about 200 miles to get to the beginning of the reef, the Great Barrier Reef, and
Right.
then I've got a 15-mile journey across the reef, and then another 5 or 6 miles to the marina. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, I am, less than 250 miles now.
So I've just been speaking a little earlier about your journey and about the maid. I know a lot of people are going to be excited to come and wave you in, so to speak. Maybe come out in their boat and sort of ride with you the last few kilometres. But I've been trying to make people aware the maid is not made for shallow water or to be near other boats, and this is a bit of a concern to you, isn't it?
Oh, I always get really nervous. So, I did a lot of my training around Sydney and in Sydney Harbour and, Pittwater. And, she's not made to be around other boats, or she's not made to be around coastlines and, objects and land. She's pretty much just built to be out where she is right now in the big, wild, open ocean. So, I've got lack of maneuverability, and also I'm really affected by tides, current, wind as well. She's 7.7 metres long, so she's got a lot of windage.
Yeah.
So basically, if the wind's blowing, I just get blown in the direction. So, yeah, it's always a bit nerve-wracking to be around vessels and land as well. It's a bit tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. So the advice then is if people, feel they have to come out, how far away from you should they stay?
Oh, the other thing is I do move very slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So nothing happens real fast unless, the other boater is travelling fast.
Yeah.
But, generally, you give me, my oars stick out the side 2 metres. You give me a good
5 or 10 metres at least, I would have thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't need the distraction. At the end of the day, you don't want to start having a conversation 30 kilometres offshore. You want to get to shore, don't you?
Yeah, I'm very motivated, very keen now after 227 days today, 227 days at sea. Very keen and motivated to get in and, get off this moving vessel. And, I guess, particularly coming across the reef, I sort of probably don't want too many distractions around that area. But, I'm subject to tides and stuff as well. But, I guess I'm going to have adrenaline pumping and, I'm going to be very, very excited, that's for sure.
So I've had the opportunity to speak to you off the air a couple of times in the last few weeks, and the level of excitement in you is building. I don't think you're allowing yourself to get, too caught up in it at the moment, but it must be difficult now, as you say, 227 days in. Looking back, is there a moment that stands out to you? Is there a moment that you, either a good or a bad moment after 227 days that you think, oh, that's with me for the rest of my life? Oh, no. There you go. The vagaries of satellite phones. I'm sure she'll try and ring back. So fingers crossed we will get through. Something very strange has happened with my phone. And I mean very strange. I seem to have lost all the normal screens that I have. Here she is. Let me hit that button. There you go. That must have been a deep wave you went down.
Yeah, the trough.
Yeah, the trough. I
That
beg your
light
pardon.
out of the sky. Yeah.
So I was just saying, after 227 days, looking back, what has been the biggest moment for you to date?
So there's milestone moments, of course, which is, like, you crack your 100 days, or, each 1,000 miles seems to be a milestone moment out of, you've got 8,000 miles. So it's sort of like, the first 4,000 and then the next 4 you're counting down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's those moments, and then, of course there's been 5 hurricanes coming down the coast of Mexico in the North Pacific. Then we had to get across the ITCZ, the Intertropical Conversion Zone,
Yep.
which throws a lot of, tropical weather, so lots of rain and clouds, humidity, lots of different currents, and it's just a whole heap of challenge for a couple of hundreds of miles. Then you've got the equator. Now, the equator is opposing currents. So
Right.
we have to sort of dig and zag our way across there. It's just been a technical challenge the whole way. And then, come the South Pacific, I've had the 4 cyclones, Kevin and Judy. They had me sitting on a drogue for 4 days. And before that, 2.5 weeks before that, I was on a trapeze for 9 days, which means sitting in my cabin for 9 whole days on a drogue, waiting for the sea state and the winds to all settle down and us to get out there and, do what I'm here to do, which is row this boat.
Yeah.
And that was the cyclone Gabriel. And then, sunrises, sunsets, of course, when you are, the night sky, I look out and I look up and it's just phenomenal, the night sky when you're on an ocean. And, the Milky Way, just, oh my goodness, you can't help but be in awe of Mother Nature and her raw, natural, beautiful state. And the bird life, these are the things that are moments that you want to try to capture forever. And, it's just been such a privilege to experience them. Well, the fish life under my boat. I've seen fish have babies under the boat, and
Wow.
I became the creche. I thought, well, I'm the nursery, because all of a sudden I had all these baby fish under the boat, and I know who the parents were because they've been swimming under there for ages.
Yeah.
Next thing, they're multiplied by 100, and I had the baby sharks under the boat. I had, the shark landing on my boat. I mean,
Yeah. Now, just explain that just explain the shark landing on your boat to people, will you?
Oh, God. How do you explain that? Here I am in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I'm a needle in a haystack, and a shark manages to land on my boat.
So was it trying to get one of the fish under your boat and missed, shot out of the water and just happened to land?
I would say that he did exactly that. I have a lot of fish life under the boat, so I'm almost like a dining or take-out restaurant. Help yourself, come,
Yeah.
And I dare say he went to jump to catch the fish and just happened to land on my deck, where he thrashed himself stupid for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then I was not going out there to save him, and there's no way.
Yeah.
So I waited till he thrashed himself, and then I had to throw him overboard the next day.
That must have been a concern for you, A, watching him thrash himself to death, but B, these things are all muscle and he could have destroyed your boat.
Yeah, that's the first question my brother said. Like, did he do any damage to the boat? And luckily, no. Like, he did not do any damage, and he just was sort of, on the deck. But watching it and listening to it was extremely traumatic. It was definitely traumatic because, I didn't know how long he was going to thrash around for.
Yeah.
I was concerned about him damaging, I've got steering lines and an autopilot sitting there, so they're the things that you worry about. You're, oh my God.
Yeah.
But she didn't damage anything.
So there must have been some scary moments. I know the maid is built to roll over and be rolled, completely submerged, and will right herself. That, given some of the waves, and I've read your blogs, some of the weather you've been through, particularly sitting on the drogue. For people who don't fully appreciate what sitting on the drogue is, you essentially have a parachute hanging out one end of the boat or the other that is slowing you down and being pushed in the currents and that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so the drogue that I use is a series of small cones all spliced into 100 metres of line. And so I've got 30 small cones, canvas cones, that have been beautifully spliced into 100 metres of line. They're spaced apart. I basically throw that off the bow, off the front of my boat. I have a bridle set up where I just attach it with some shackles, and then I just drop it overboard. It then extends itself out. It hooks into the current, and then it basically pulls my boat into the conditions. So if you imagine you're on a surfboard, you're going to paddle out to catch the wave.
Yep.
You point your board directly into the wave. That's what it does. It just pulls my boat directly into the waves, and very stable. It's very safe. Once you put your drogue out, you feel your boat settle. You can go and have a sleep, and you get to. It's basically like the waves just pass underneath you, and you just rise up and down, up and down. It's quite nice, to be honest.
Yeah.
When the wind and the seas are all running in alignment with each other, it's very nice. But at the moment, I'm on the drogue. I think this is day 3 today. And the wind and the seas are not in alignment, and the current, so I've got the current going one way, I've got the wind going one way, and that swell is going a different way. So it's extremely bumpy and uncomfortable. There's a lot of noise. The waves are just crashing against my boat. You've got wind waves on top of the swell. They're the ones that break.
Right, yep.
So I've had loads of crashing waves over my boat, and when they hit you, you just feel like you've been hit by a truck.
Yeah.
And it slides your boat to the side. So I've had, and it's always worse at night, isn't it? Everything's always worse at night time. The wind's been howling since they've blowing 2022. My weather router laughs at me when I say it's howling, because, to him, howling wind is like, 40, 50, 60 knot wind. But I'm in 20 knot wind. It's howling. I can hear it. It actually is howling. And my boat vibrates. I could, my little boat vibrates. It's very unnerving and unsettling. And then on the first night of this series, being on the drogue, I had thunder, lightning. It was pelting down with rain. I had the waves crashing against my boat. It was all happening all at once. And out of all of my whole trip, this one, I think I've been the most unsettled in this set right now.
Wow. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Is that because you're in a lot shallower water now too, compared to what you've been in? Does that have a big effect?
Yeah. It does have a huge effect. Going over shallows, and where the bottom of the ocean, the floor, it rises, and sometimes I've gone from 4,000, 5,000 metres into 400 metre depth.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal to look at the chart. I've got my chart plotter, and to go and to realise, what goes on underneath the water. Like the land, the geography of it.
Yeah. Ever thought of getting a submarine and doing it back the other way, maybe next time?
Here's the funny thing, right? Submarines. Now, when's the last time you ever had a conversation about a submarine?
Not recently.
It just doesn't. Exactly. You don't hear the word submarine very often. I rang my friend Jacinta, who gets phone calls from me every single night. She's a massive moral support. And I said to her, I keep having this vision of a submarine emerging next to me, and the sailors come out on top, and they're looking at me going, "What the?" And I'm looking at them going, "What the?" Right? And we kind of both shrug at each other. It's like, okay, all right. And then the next day, she had a client. She's a massage therapist. She had a client on her table, and out of the blue, he just started talking about the submarine deal that's going on in Australia.
Yes.
The Prime Minister apparently was buying a submarine. And I know nothing about these headlines and don't want to, but anyway, it's just weird. She said, "You told me about your submarine vision today, and then tomorrow her client's going on about submarine." And she said, "I haven't heard the word submarine in 20 years or something." And it's just weird. How's that happen?
There you go. Well, I can tell you, if it's an Australian AUKUS submarine that pops up beside you, you better hope the Americans are driving it, because we haven't learned how yet. So, all right. Well, I wanted to touch base with you about your scariest moment so far. What's been the thing where that's made you think, or has anything made you think, shit, what am I doing here?
Let me think. I guess in the beginning, yes. When Roger was mentioned, Roger, my letter router, when he was mentioned, there was a formation of a hurricane, and he's looking 10 and 11 days out, right? So
yep.
They don't yet know exactly the track that it's going to take. So every time he mentioned the H word,
yes,
I just instantly, I was like, oh, I could hardly speak. And
yeah.
And Roger was saying, "You don't have to worry yet, Michelle. Don't worry yet. I'm just telling you that they can see it. There is a formation happening. It might not come anywhere near you, but we're just, basically we're just being alert, not alarmed,
Yeah.
So anytime I heard the C word, the cyclone, anyway, I was thinking, or the H word, I was thinking, oh my God, please don't come in. And I'd call on my angels, please look over me and my dragons, and you become, I'm not going to say superstitious, but you have belief in something bigger than you out here that is looking after you, and you call on them. So I've done that, but what am I doing out here? I haven't really said that, because I'm exactly where I want to be.
Yep.
And, this was a long time in the planning, and it was, a long time in the mind before you start the planning. So it was being born and hatched. So I've never actually said, what am I doing out here? But, yeah, I had some scary moments. And I've had a lot of moments where they were the first time I've ever done it. It's actually the first time I've ever deployed my drone in real conditions. Like, I've thrown it overboard in Sydney Harbour just to, practice throwing it over and dragging it in.
Yep.
But I didn't have the conditions required to make these things effective.
Yeah, right.
So I was petrified. The first time I had to throw the drone over, I was scared, literally scared. And I'm saying to myself, I'm sure you can do this, and I went through it in my mind first. I pictured it, I visioned it. I'm like, okay, I had it all set up on the deck. I'd gone over it, because I knew for a couple of days in advance that I'm going to need the drone.
Yep.
So I set it all up on the deck, and it all comes down to preparation. It really comes down to, just get your gear out in the moment of calm. Don't wait till the moment of, oh shit, all shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah.
So I had already laid it out. I'd already gone over it, and okay, put that in first, feed it out slowly, so there's been some, worlds of first. I had some, electrical issues earlier on, very, very early on, where my batteries just switched off, and that was a real oh shit moment.
Yeah, I
bet. Just went blank, and I was like, so here I'm ringing my friend Victor in USA, because the beauty of the people supporting me is I've got people all around the world. So any time zone, no matter what time it is here for me,
Yeah.
I've got somewhere in the world that I can ring anybody, and it's amazing. So I've got all these people at my fingertips, and here I'm ringing USA, saying to Victor, oh my God, the power's gone. I've lost everything. I know all the time. I've got no hardware. I've got no AIS, the GPS, everything's gone. And he's like, Michelle, just calm down. And, this is what you need. You just need this really calm, logical team
Yep.
to, pull the reins in when you're just losing your crap.
Yep, and they just help you step through the process of Control, Alt, Delete, Reboot.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what will you miss the most when you get back on land?
The lack of serenity. Once you get back on land, there's obviously everyday demands of first world that you need to deal with. There's emails, texts, and you've got to get back to people. You've got to go to work. You've got to join in the matrix to some extent, and so it'll be the simplicity of what I've just lived for 227 days is eat, sleep, grow, repeat. It's look after yourself.
Yeah.
Maintain your boat. I've got a little maintenance program for my boat. A little routine that I do because prevention is better than cure. So finding things that are loose before they actually fall off is always much better than finding a loose screw somewhere thinking, where the hell did that come from? Oh, shit,
Yeah.
So I will miss the simplicity out here that this offers. And, there's been some days where it's just been a flood of attack, not a breath of wind. And just the silence is just insane. And, you're thinking, how beautiful is this? How can I capture this?
Yeah.
So that I can recall it in a moment when I'm in a frenzy back at home with all stuff happening and, the demands of just normal life. So, it's definitely going to be a simplicity. You
mentioned the hurricanes. The plan initially for you was to depart from San Francisco and go to Sydney. Every time we go to the tracker, there is this magnificent red line that is your proposed track from there. Now, we know you had to start from Mexico and Ensenada because of your status with the jab. They wouldn't allow you into America. But those hurricanes really did upset your track right from the word go, didn't they? They pushed you well south, and then you were struggling to get back up onto the right track to get to Sydney, or you wound up north of that again. Conditions have not been easy on you, have they?
No, and it's been, this trip has been way harder than I anticipated, way harder than I imagined. So I guess, it was naive, a little bit naive, I guess. But
that's what you adventurers do, though, isn't it? I mean, it might be naivety, but it's the fact that, there's an ocean there. It needs to be rowed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
So after the Atlantic Ocean, I just knew I could do it better with the knowledge that I learned on that first voyage. That was my maiden voyage. It was my boat's maiden voyage. And I just knew that if I did this, if I tweaked and refined this, if I simplified that, I'm thinking of my boat all the time on the Atlantic, then you could have a better time, and now that I know what I know and blah, blah, blah. So, we adopted a lot of those things. For months, my boat was in a workshop and during COVID, and I would go and work on my boat with Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe was amazing. Just open the doors and he said, come in and do what you got to do. And he guided me. He did heaps as well. God love him. But, just to get my hands on it, in it, and involved, get involved is what you've got to do and know your vessel intimately.
Yeah.
Which I really do because we built this thing from the ground up.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first 3 weeks coming down the coast of Mexico, everything was trying to force me back onto land.
Yeah.
The struggle was real, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, did you come across? I know that you've got the satellite phone, obviously. I also know that you've got a handheld marine radio. How many ocean liners, how many big bulk ships or fishing trawlers have you come across? And do you stop for a chat, or do they stop for a chat?
They are not chatty. I've tried. So every time I see one, I always get on the radio and call them for a few reasons. One, to make sure my VHF radio is working, and two, to confirm that the vessels can see me on their chart. So I'm making sure that my AIS is transmitting.
Right.
And three, I just like to have a chat.
Yeah.
And so, I do the whole, hi, I'm just good morning, Captain. I'm just doing a radio check, and can you please confirm if you see me on your AIS? They say, yes, madam, we read you loud and clear, and yes, we can see you on our chart plotter. Then I say, I'm an ocean rowing boat. I'm at Ensenada in Mexico on the 8th of August. I'm out on day 193, and I'm heading to Sydney. And you know what I got?
Uh-huh.
One of the captains goes, okay. I'm like, come on, dude. We're just going to have a freaking chat, man. So, no, they're generally not chatting. I had one of them, and he said, he goes, you can do that. I said, well, I'm giving him a very hot shot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, and I went for months without seeing a soul.
Yeah, wow.
Nothing.
Wow.
And then just recently I've come across shipping channels, the main shipping channel,
right,
where the boats are coming out of the east coast of Australia, and it was like Central Bloody Station. There was a day where I had ships everywhere around me, and it's actually quite nerve-wracking, to be honest.
I'd reckon it would be.
I'm talking they're 288 metres long, they're 45 metres wide.
Yeah.
They're big, and I couldn't wait to get out of that channel, out of the main drag.
Yeah. God, yeah. Well, there's your motivation to paddle a few more strokes a minute, I guess, to get out.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Listen, I won't keep you up because I know you need to get your rest. You're hopeful of getting back on the oars first thing tomorrow morning. We've been talking about coming up to be in Cairns for your arrival. I really hope that we can make that happen. I'll keep in touch with Molly, or maybe you might even ordain to give me a call and let me know when you expect to get there. But we'll certainly be trying to make the beach when you get back after your 200 and, well, what will it be, 35, 40 odd days at sea. So you are an inspiration to us all, Michelle. There are so many more questions I want to ask you about how you mentally motivated yourself, keep motivating yourself during those hard times, and when you miss the little things, like when you've run out of toilet paper.
Yeah, that's about to happen, actually. I'm seriously rationing rations right now.
Yeah, well, we've had plenty of advice given. People are suggesting folding is much better than scrunching.
Yeah, and especially when you're using one little square, scrunching is actually not really an option.
No, I don't guess it is. Listen, look, my darling, you have a wonderful night. I hope it's a safe night under the drogue, and tomorrow you're back on the oars and powering towards the east coast of Australia. I know that there are people on your team working hard in Cairns to make sure that the welcome at Cairns Marina will be one that you will remember, that we will remember, because it has to be remembered. You need to be honoured. You are the first woman to have rowed solo across the Pacific Ocean unassisted, and it is a huge moment, not just for you, but it's a great moment for women. It's a great moment for Australians. It's another thing we've got a first for, and we've got you to thank for that. And I know that there'll be a lot of people that want to express their thanks and just see history being made as you come alongside in the marina. I understand, of course, that after you've been away for so long, your priorities are going to be friends, family, getting a shower, a great meal. What will be the first meal you have? What will you ask for?
I actually asked for a tray of celery, capsicum, cucumber, and anything that's crunchy and juicy, fresh. I want fresh because everything in packet food. Nothing but packet food. I've had nothing fresh.
No wonder my reply to the email I sent. Do you think she'd like a vegetarian pizza on arrival? Didn't get a reply.
I know what I won't even be fussy. I'll take whatever I'm given. But a 7-sheet tea would be nice. A lovely warm scone with fresh cream and jam and a pot of chai tea. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
I think
just really say massive thank you to all the supporters, everybody who has been watching, all the dot watchers that open the app every day and have a look where we are, and to my sponsors. I want to say thanks to my sponsors for believing in me and taking the leap of faith and coming on board. I've got people programming for me and praying and sending goodbyes to all the graduates and the Silver family are just sending goodbyes all the time. And a shout out to my Mexicans, the Mexicans in Ensenada, who embraced me like you couldn't believe how they embraced this journey and me. And I got taken in by a family, my Mexican mama, Manya, and they got the mariachi band for me at 1:30.
I know.
I rode out.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just incredible. And my little ocean swimmers, they swam out with me for the first kilometre. They've got a very warm and special place in my heart, the Mexicans.
Yep, your Ensenada family, awesome stuff.
And my family, my family came on board as well. My brother's building me a trailer right now so that we can get them made home. And
wow.
My mum came on board and helped, with a big cash injection right at the very, very end. She kind of made it happen in the end. I was very short, and and in the end it was either this or miss out and have to try and go next year. So
Well, I'm sure the family are extremely proud of you, as we are here at the Voice of Freedom, and I know so many people around Australia who follow this show are always asking about you, how you're going, when are you going to be back. So hopefully we'll have a few of us up there at the marina to welcome you home in the next few weeks when you get there. Do you have, or are you willing to give a sort of vague idea when you might arrive?
Realistically, I think it might be sort of between 7 days at a push to earliest and 11 at the most, I reckon.
Right, 7 days at the earliest, 11 at the worst. Wow.
Yeah.
No wonder you're starting to dream about Devonshire teas and cream-covered scones.
I know. I'm going to try and keep a control on it.
I know I've been responsible. I know I've been responsible for a couple of suggestions to your team about your entrance into Australia. One of them being, what are you going to do with customs? But have you considered that there are logs with teeth that float in the ocean close to the Australian coastline around Cairns?
Sorry, what are they floating?
Logs with teeth. Other people call them crocodiles.
Oh, crocodiles. Oh, my God, I know. Well, my brother keeps reminding me you're in crocodile territory.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about it too much because I've got my imagination can go into overdrive. So I'm just trying to keep that under control because I know they jump as well. They could jump out of the water and land on my freaking deck as well.
That's true, but that 2-meter oar had become real useful at that point for other things rather than paddling.
Hopefully, maybe there will be some good lookouts. On the way in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you won't have a problem with the crocodile, and if you do, I dare say you're going to need a little bit more than one piece of toilet paper.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sure that won't be a problem, Michelle. And we can't wait to see you as you hit the ground back here in Australia after, well, let's say 230 plus days. And I for one am just, really excited to see you home and safe. And then let's talk about the next journey. It's going to be huge for you, and I'm really looking forward to see where you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Carl, and thanks, everybody.
You have a great night, and I'll let you head off.
Awesome. Okay. Good night. Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Good night. The marvelous Michelle Lee. What an amazing woman, I got to say. The mental strength that she has, folks, is not to be sneezed at. We had a long chat this afternoon, lining up that interview, and I asked her a lot of questions about mental motivation and all that kind of thing. And you have to hear her story when she comes home, folks. And I'm sure there'll be an opportunity, once she's recovered, to hear her speak, whether it's here on the Voice of Freedom or in person somewhere. You need to learn this toughness. It's not a toughness. It's a skill that she's learned to keep the mind focused, to keep her vibration elevated. And, we've been talking about raising our vibration, keeping our vibration higher. We need to lift ourselves. We need to level up. We need to start comprehending our full abilities. And Michelle is one of those ladies who is very, very, very aware of her own abilities, and that there are no limits to what she can achieve. And she will, I'm sure, bring that to us when she gets back on land in hopefully the speaking circuit or whatever she chooses to do. I can't wait to hear that story, the mental toughness. I know now, without any real training, and I like to think I'm pretty mentally strong, but I wouldn't even know how to begin to get myself ready for something like she has achieved. As she said, it's eat, sleep, row, repeat. Eat, sleep, row, repeat for as many days as it takes. And you've got to love growing, you've got to love solitude, and you've got to be able to deal with your own self in a lot of that. So I'm really looking forward to getting more in depth with her, if you like, as we go forward from her arrival back in Australia. Now, if you want to come up to Cairns, what did she say? 7 days. So anytime from, let me bring up a calendar here. Where are we? The 24th. So anytime between now and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 4th of April, she reckons. Anytime between 7 days. So that'd make it next Thursday. So the window is next Thursday to the following Tuesday. Thursday the 30th. To Tuesday the 4th, by the look of it. Now, you maybe want a day either side, depending on what's happening. So we're going to go up. Now, it's probably a bit late in the tooth to try and organise shows to go up. We might be able to organise some on the way back. Townsville, I'm going to get in contact with Peter Newey. I know Peter was keen to get me up there a few months ago. And this is the ideal opportunity, either on the way up or on the way back. And I know Jane from QSI and James, who is managing a hotel in Cairns, is keen to get us up there for a show. So, not Cairns, I beg your pardon, in Townsville. So, I think Townsville, you can be pretty well guaranteed that some stage, either on the way up or on the way back, we'll stop in Townsville and do a show at the pub. I'll get you details about that. And we'll have a night in Townsville, see what it's all about. And might even spend a day or two in Townsville, as I know there's some other things that are worth catching up on in Townsville. Also coming back either up or down the coast on the way. So Rockhampton, I know Rocky was interested, and Yeppoon. If there are folks in Rocky and Yeppoon that want to do something, all great, no worries. I don't know if there's anybody in Airlie Beach or Bowen, Mackay. I'm sure there are people in Mackay. In fact, I might get a hold of Lindsay, who ran for the Senate out of Mackay, and see what Lindsay can do. Might have a suggestion or two, might not either. We'll endeavour to see what we can do. If there is a place where I can put on a show, then I will. If not, we'll obviously be stopping along the road, and I will be doing shows along the road. Now, if I find a nice motel somewhere or a nice bit of dirt where we can put the swags out, because that's probably what it's going to be, I can tell you. It's hard when you're traveling with a daughter and a dog. So we'll do shows from the side of the road, or if we are turning up at a pub for dinner, might do a show from there and just let you know that that's where we are. You can come along and say hi. Won't be anything formal, but it'll just be a bit of a catch-up. If you want to catch up, love to do it. I haven't been to far north Queensland. I'm looking forward to the drive. And if you are interested in, convoying up with us, then send me an email, carl@vofhq.com. We'll try and coordinate our leave times and dates. But if you are going to come, you better be prepared to drive. Daughter and I drive pretty much non-stop. So, we're gonna drive some big hours to get up there. And if you want to come along, love to have you. But you can find your own accommodation, or you can sleep in the swag. Not my swag or hers, but bring your own swag. But you can camp beside us anywhere we pull up along the side of the road. There's plenty of free camping places along the road, and we'll try and find as many of those as we can. And provided we've got phone power and battery power and internet connection, we'll do a show from wherever the hell it'll be. Look forward to having you along for that, folks. If you want to come, it'll be an interesting little road trip. I think I've covered everything off I was going to talk about tonight. The French protesting. The French are certainly protesting at the moment. I saw today people in Australia just starting to talk about the fact that there were 1 million people protesting in France today about what's going on with the French government. I can tell you, folks, there have been 1 million people in France protesting every day for the last 15 or 20 days. 1 million or more people every day on the streets of Paris. We get all excited when we raise 1.5, maybe 2 million people to turn up for one day. And then we celebrate it a year later by not going back. What does that suggest to you, folks? I know the French people have history when it comes to revolution and dealing with evil leaders, but they are showing the way. They are not giving up. They are not coming out for one day, treating it as a day in the park. Okay, you might have to dodge the police for a little while, but they are doing it day in, day out, every day, letting the government know that nothing will happen in that country until the people are listened to. That's pretty much what has to happen here, folks. There's no point in raising 1 million of us to go off to Canberra one day and go home the next. We need people on the streets every day in huge numbers in our biggest cities. Huge numbers, 250 to 500,000 a day minimum. That's what's required to get change out of our governments. And even then, who knows? But wouldn't it be interesting to see how it worked? It's interesting, too, to see that the unions in France have stopped collecting rubbish. Paris is piling up with crap miles high. Paris has always been known at times to be a rather stinky kind of a city, but at the moment, it's really on the hooter. There is weeks and weeks of garbage lying in the streets because the unions are refusing to go and collect it after what the French government have done to their people. They will get action, folks, one way or the other. Do you remember the French farmers when there was problems with the French government trying to impose regulations on French farmers? They shut down the entire country. The Belgians, I think, did the same thing recently, took their tractors to the roads and brought the country to a standstill for a week or more. Made the government listen to what they were saying. Made the government take note that the unjust laws or restrictions that they were putting on the farmers were not going to be just accepted because it was stupid, absolutely stupid, as are a lot of the bureaucratic laws that come into existence. So, folks, the French are leading by example. 1 million people on the streets per day for the last 15 to 20 days. How many can we arrange? Okay, we can't arrange 1 million people on the streets every day. Or can we? We're a population of 26 million. Let's call them 12 million usable, functional, adult, can get out, make their own decision, go away and be part of this if they want every day. The rest of them are either not awake, not interested, or have something that restricts them from being involved. They're too young. They might have a disability, whatever. 12 million. Let's say we've got 12 million usable Australians. I'd hope to see that maybe there was more, but let's say 12. Let's be conservative. Can we get 1 million people on the streets? Pick a street. Sydney, Melbourne, day after day. Can we get 1 million people in Melbourne one day? Can we get 1 million people in Sydney the next? Can we get 1 million people in Brisbane the day after that? Can we get 250,000 in Adelaide? Can we get 250,000 in Perth? Can we get 100,000 in Darwin? 50,000 in Darwin? Can we get 10,000 in Alice Springs? Can we get 20,000 in Cairns? These are questions we need to answer, folks. Our 1 million people might be 10,000 people turning up in many places every day rather than 1 million people in one place. But for things like Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, we need 1 million people on the streets. And we need them regularly. Because until you make known why you need the changes made, because there'll be so many normies who just get upset that you've blocked the road, too many people protesting again, woe is me. Until you wake those normies up, and maybe this is the only way to do it, because surely even a brain-dead troll-type normie will start to ask questions if 1 million people keep turning up on the street day after day after day. And even if it's not 1 million, maybe it's 500,000, maybe it's 250,000. All it has to be is enough people to block George Street for the day, to turn up and block Canberra, block Civic, block the roads for a day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. So maybe people can't always go every day, but as long as we're replacing the ones that drop out on a daily basis with new ones for the next day, it doesn't matter. We'll still have our 1 million people on the streets. We can do it. It takes a bit of coordination, a bit of thinking about it. I would say let's ask for union support, but as I'm sure you're aware, the unions are long bought, and whether it be by government or the deep state, probably both, they're not going to help. We saw just what the CFMEU members felt about their leadership in Melbourne when the big protest happened down there, and they tore the front off the building, and the bikies and the union leadership were cowering behind the door. Went and got a garden hose at one stage, saw them spraying the front rows of the union members who were just disgusted with their own union and the way that they were supporting what could only be called coercive actions by Dan Andrews' government. So there's more to come on that, I think, and we need to follow the French. Lots of people. America's going to start to stand up pretty soon too. Oh, should we talk about Donald John Trump? So the whisper now is that he will not be arrested at all. I did see a video sent today and later confirmed as a hoax that the New York DA, Briggs, something like that, had been asked to resign, and that he had made a video saying that, or a speech at least, saying that all the charges against Trump were going to be dropped next week. That is crap. If you've seen that video, take no notice of it whatsoever. Donald Trump is still likely to be arrested, but it will be over the internet if it happens. But if it happens, do you remember the raid on Mar-a-Lago, where they took all those supposed secret documents that the president had kept? Do you remember all the raids on Joe Biden's property now? So they've gone pretty hard on Trump. Are they going to go hard on Biden, considering the top secret information that he should not have had outside of one of their secret little rooms, just kept in the garage beside the Corvette, amongst other places? There is a game being played out here, folks. It is a movie. I know we keep saying it, and it's sometimes hard to believe because it looks like the never-ending bloody movie. And I know to many of us that's exactly how it feels, the never-ending movie. But if you are watching it closely, you are seeing things happen. You are seeing things play out. Lots of war games happening at the moment down at Jervis Bay. Helicopter wound up in the ocean, crash landed. Thankfully, all on board got out safely. We are getting rid of those helicopters, the Pumas, the MRH-90s, I think they're called. Puma or Taipan? We might call them the Taipan. But they are not really fit for certainly special operations purposes. And while they can lift a lot of weight, they are very, very expensive to maintain. They are very finicky machines. And the Army is done with them. They're going to the new model Black Hawks. I don't know what they did with all their old Black Hawks. I think they've still got quite a few of them. Magnificent beast, the Black Hawk. If you've ever been close to one or been able to go flying, just raises the hair on the back of my neck. Anyway, I think that'll just about do us for Friday night, folks. Michelle Lee was great to spend some time with us tonight. And if you do want to come and join us, then please email me, carl@vofhq.com. I'll let you know where and when. I dare say if you're going to leave Brisbane, maybe the Nudgee Service Centre, the Shell Nudgee Service Centre, very early one morning might be where we would meet and kick off from there. And maybe look at stopping in Rockhampton or Yeppoon the first day, and maybe looking then going up to Airlie or Bowen, and potentially staying a night there, and then maybe there to Cairns, and on the way back doing Townsville, maybe Mackay, and I think there is an opportunity around Bundy to drop in and do a show in Bundaberg again. So, or Childers. Maybe Michelle, you might want to talk to me about that. If we're going through your part of the world, we can call in and have a little My Place meeting in Childers or around Childers. So something we can just talk about. All very flexible at my end. You know how it works. I'm also going to instigate because I love the fact that I have a few members on our website, and I thank you if you are a member. It is quite humbling. We don't have a lot of members, and I've always said that I'm sorry there is no benefit to being a member because I won't hide the information behind a membership site. I feel it's important that everybody can get the information for nothing, because I usually am in a position where I can't afford to go behind a paywall. I don't even read free-to-air papers that make me pay for it. So I've never been able to afford it, and I still believe the information should be made freely available to everybody. So to that end, I do not hide any of the intel that I get behind a paywall and give it to the members. But I've been feeling a bit guilty that there hasn't been much in it for you being a member. So I'm going to run a little competition, but it will only be open to members. All right. I've still got to look into the legalities of how I run this competition online at the moment, whether or not I've got to go and get some sort of government officialry out of it, or if there is a way I can run it where I don't need to go and pledge my soul and a lot of money to the friggin' government over it. But the prize will be, I think, pretty substantial. But it will only be available to members, and it will be drawn simply from our members' bucket, if you like. We'll get everybody's name printed out, we'll put it into a bucket, and we will draw out the winner. And I can tell you now that the prize will be a substantial amount of silver, all thanks in part to Ainsley Bullion, who I rang today to inquire about maybe getting a 1 kilo coin as a prize to offer up, and I was going to try and buy that to put that up as a prize. Paul has said to me that they would be happy to help me out with that. It won't be a coin because coins are impossible to get at the moment, but we do have something else in mind that Paul is going to work on, and hopefully in the next week or so I will have some details on that. But you will only be able to win it if you're a member of Voice of Freedom. So if you're not a member and you want to win a little bit of silver, then you've got to be in it to win it, so to speak. So VoFHQ.com is the website to go to, and there is a membership tag there, just from $1.25 a week to whatever you want per week. It's taken out, I think, monthly. I'm not sure. Whatever you choose it to be, it'll work around you, I'm pretty confident. But this competition will only be available to members. So look forward to trying to up your silver stocks a little bit. Don't really know how much it'll be yet. I just know it'll be silver. So, and it won't be a coin. It'll particularly a kilo coin. A, they're very expensive, and B, there are none at the moment. They've been all sold. So we will look to see what else we can get, but rest assured it will be very shiny, and it'll be whatever I can afford. And we'll put it up as a prize, as a thank you for your support of the Voice of Freedom. Because I can't keep the intel to myself, but I can keep the silver to only the members. So if you're going to be part of that, we'd love you to join us. And thank you for any support you do give us, folks. In fact, I'm probably going to need to call on your support to get to Cairns. We're not too worried about where we're going to stay. We've got a couple of swags. We'll be fine beside the side of the road. The dog doesn't bark too loudly. Good distraction for the crocodiles, I guess. God, I hope Laura doesn't see that. She'll kill me. But fuel is probably the other big thing we're going to need. So if you care to join us, membership will go a long way. If you would like to make a donation, then you can do that on the website too at vofhq.com. And thank you for anything you choose to do. But rest assured, whether you choose to do something or not, we'll still be here to help you hopefully navigate your way through this rather interesting time. I'm hopeful that I might be able to get somebody on in the near future who many of you may recognize. Starseed, Chris Starseed, will go off his nut if I happen to score an interview with this person. But I'm very keen to look at how we continue to invest in our spirituality and how we are raising our awareness of where we are currently and where we need to be if we are going to grow as humanity. Part of that, I believe, is learning how to forgive. And it's a difficult thing for most of us. We've been trained to believe with division. We've been trained to hate. We've been trained not to love, except under certain conditions. And we are much better than that. So you've heard me speak about leveling up, about raising our awareness over many shows, raising our consciousness, stepping up, whatever you want to call it. I'm sort of reaching out for more advice on how to help us all either speed up the process, or for those of us that don't really know what the process is, or how to define it more clearly so that we know what actions we should be taking. I think in our heart of hearts, we know what actions we should be taking, but being the kinds of humans we are, we need to get some advice from someone who's a bit, maybe more spiritually attuned or whatever. So I've been looking for that person. I think I've found that person. I've sent an email to that person and I've asked them if they would join us as a one-off, just to teach us, because I believe this person is a wonderful teacher. And I've certainly learned from watching their content about my own inner being, my soul, listening to my inner self, learning, I guess, to interpret that intuition, which I've lacked in most of my life. And I think a lot of blokes have, a lot of women have too, but women seem to get this intuition thing much sooner than blokes, or have it much longer. And they are much better at fine-tuning it than most of the fellas I've met. We have to lift our game, blokes. We have to learn that as well. And that doesn't mean you have to become in touch with your feminine side. Not that there's anything wrong with that. In fact, it probably does mean that at some point you do need to touch your feminine side. And I don't mean in that way, boys. I mean, you need to understand it. You need to nurture it. You need to love it, respect it, and use it at the appropriate time. We need to understand compassion. But with compassion, we also need to understand that at times, despite being compassionate, there's nothing much we can do to fix a certain problem or, certain person, and that there really is only one solution to that, whatever that solution remains to be seen. But we are going to have to confront those situations. If the whole Nasara Jasara quantum chance white hats thing happens, then we are told there will be another Nuremberg trial. There will be public hangings of those folks who have propagated the lies and who have crushed vocal dissent and free speech. Well, as much as those of us who think we're ready to see that, there are many people in this world who aren't. And I would venture to say many of those saying who they are ready to see that and ready to pull the handle. It's easy to say that now, but watching somebody die, especially at your hand, has a toll. It takes a toll on your soul. So before you go shoving your hands up too wildly and voting yourself up for those jobs, you want to be very, very aware of your level of existence. You want to be very attuned. You want to be very awake, very aware. You need to be leveled up. Your consciousness needs to be able to view and deal with what that action would mean. And I think a lot of people at the moment don't really appreciate or understand what that means. How many of you have met someone who has murdered a person? I mean, really murdered them. Have you met them after they've got out of jail? Have you met them before they've got there? If you've ever met someone who has murdered or killed a person, and there are differences. There are people who've accidentally killed people, say in car accidents and that sort of thing, or a work scenario. And then there are people who have actively killed someone in a fight. They had no intention to kill them, but, they fell down, hit their head on the gutter on the way down and went to sleep, never woke up. That is a different sort of toll on your soul. But then there are the people who actively, purposely, premeditatively set out to kill someone. Have you ever met someone like that? I have. In fact, I've met someone of every one of those scenarios I've just described to you, different someones. I can tell you that the person who deliberately, premeditatively took another person's life suffers at a soul level that is hard to describe. It's like they've killed a large portion of their soul. And they know that they've been cut off from source, or now have a very, very, very thin, wafer-thin hair connection to it. To be cut off from source, and source can be what you call God, the creator, whatever. When your soul is cut off from source, you are lost. That's when they come for you, the other side. And some people embrace that. We have to be aware and understanding that some people embrace that dark side. Some people want that. That's why we have serial killers. But I do believe there is a difference between people who have premeditatively killed somebody versus somebody who's killed somebody in an accident versus somebody who's killed somebody in a fight that sort of went wrong. And there are great differences in the damages that it does to us inside. Well, I think we need to learn more about that, more about our soul and how we do damage it and how we can repair it. There are ways, so I'm led to believe, and I hope I'm practicing a few of them in my life, because I know I need my soul repaired from a few different things I've done in my life, things I'm not proud of. But I've never killed anybody. I've never done anything they'd send me to jail for, so don't go and get too upset. I've just done cruel things that I'm ashamed, deeply ashamed of. Cruel things to my fellow humans that I didn't care about. So now I don't do that shit. Now I aim to be a much better person. And occasionally the trolls get to me and I lower myself, and I am ashamed that I lower myself to their level. Rest assured that won't happen anymore. I don't care enough about what a troll thinks to bother replying. And I now know that just amusing myself with them doesn't do anything but excite them, and gives me a little joy for a little bit of time. I couldn't care less what they think, say, or feel. Bring an argument to the table, have an adult conversation, stop squealing like spoilt children, and I'll have a conversation with you. But until then, dickheads, get out on the road and try and avoid the rest of us, will you?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!